weeks, we certainly have been hanging out with the people of the Exodus. There has been despair and exhaustion and deep wondering. Where is God? How could God lead us out of enslavement to a place where there is no food or water? We have endured questions and quarrels and even a little communion. The people of Israel are in that liminal space, the in-between space. No longer in Egypt, but not quite to the promised land. And now we have come to Mount Sinai. We come to this mountaintop experience where all things enlightening happen. We come to a place where God expresses guidelines for us to live by. Do these 10 commandments, 10 laws, 10 guidelines help us in our current structures and systems? Are these commandments still relevant for us today? In her commentary, Pamela Scalise talks about what happened in the state of Alabama in November of 2018. She cites this experience, this moment, this event, where Alabama voted on an amendment to the state constitution that would protect displays of the 10 Commandments on public property. Dean Young, the head of the 10 Commandments Political Action Committee, asserted that a vote for this amendment would affirm that the United States is a nation founded on the Christian God. Historians dispute this claim, however, suggesting instead that the founding fathers reflect the overwhelming influence of deism, Enlightenment, Whig, and other classical Republican theories, in addition to Christianity. The founding leaders did not, it seems, create a specifically Christian state. The First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States explicitly prohibits the government from establishing a religion and from inhibiting its citizens from exercising their multiple faiths. The 10 Commandments, however, have turned into some kind of Christian identifier. Though not explicitly in the New Testament, they have been used by the early Christian theologians in the creation of treatises and in the forefront of catechism teachings. How many of us had to memorize them, recite them, know them inside and out, and then to be able to say that in front of everyone gathered for that particular Sunday? And yet, do they still matter? Can these 10 statements continue to help build healthy structures or even dismantle unjust institutions? Well, if we are on God's time, they still matter. God gave the Exodus people a gift to assist in their living. Liz Coolidge Jenkins cites the work of Walter Brueggemann. Walter Brueggemann is a theologian, and he's an Old Testament scholar that knows the Old Testament inside and out. So when it comes to all things Older Testament, Walter is usually in the midst of it. And in his book, Journey to the Common Good, which summarizes the heart of the commandments teachings, he writes that the summary includes love and trust of Yahweh rather than Pharaoh's security system, commandments 1 through 3. Embrace the Sabbath rest as an alternative to aggressive anxiety, commandment 4. Recognize that neighbors, all kinds of neighbors, are to be respected and protected and not exploited, commandments 5 through 9. And limit acquisitiveness, particularly predatory practices and aggressive policies that make the little ones vulnerable to the ambitions of the big ones. Commandment 10. This is how God teaches the community of the faith to live together. If we look at the Ten Commandments in the context in which they were written, they are reminding us yet again that God did not and does not abandon God's people. God continues to show up through manna, through water, and now through guidelines for living. God's laws serve as a holistic and transformative way for humans to flourish in uncertain times. These laws also help us engage other sorts of authorities. Liz Coolidge Jenkins in her commentary cites the work of Desmond Tutu, who saw how differing authorities clashed in his anti-apartheid activism. In his book, God is Not a Christian, Tutu writes, quote, "When a clash occurs between the laws of man and the laws of God, then for the Christian there can be no debate or argument about which he must obey." He goes on to urge, "Please let us be mindful of the important distinction between what is legal and what is morally right." End quote. As we've seen what has happened over the course of our week in our government and our systems, we seem to stand right before us. What is legal and what is morally right? And how then, as a people, do we come to terms with that and speak out against that? I conclude with these words from Jenkins, who wrote these words far better. Well, actually, she says it as well as I could have said it, so I'm just going to use her words to cite her work on this day. Jenkins writes, "In the Ten Commandments, God prioritizes two key values: honor God and love your neighbor. Do not dishonor God's image in your neighbor. If human-made laws are racist or otherwise unjust such that they cannot be followed while honoring God's image in every human being, then they contradict God's laws and have no claim over a person of faith. In that sense, God's law offer a kind of freedom. Earthly laws that contradict our higher law do not contain us. We can resist when we need to. We can struggle together for a better world. In so doing," Jenkins writes, "we find ourselves building new tools. In an exploitative world, we build generosity. In a competitive world, we build communal mindedness. In a rushed and impatient world, we build space to rest. In a world where wealth is unjustly distributed, those who have resources refuse to try to gain more and more. Instead, they open their hands to share with those who do not have enough. In doing these things, we, like the Israelites learning how to live out their brand new liberation, become truly free." End quote. And thus, showing us once again that these laws still have some relevancy for today and living together in a way that loves and honors. May it be so. Amen.